folks, Dr. Ronni Greenwood here from the Psychology Department. I'm also the chair of the Healthy UL Mental Health Subcommittee. When I was asked to put together a mental health session for the Life Skills workshops, the first thing that came to my mind was time management and studying smart. I've had a lot of students come talk to me lately about how stressed out they feel and how they don't feel like they have enough coping resources or maybe the right tools to deal with the stress of trying to juggle their studies, their coursework assignments, attending class, their family responsibilities, their part-time jobs, and their relationships. You might be studying in a second language, or you might be navigating college along with a visible or invisible disability. Some of you have additional stressors, like you're studying away from home or your families are far away, or you might be a mature student who's returned to school after many years. And so maybe you also have family or caring responsibilities. Everybody has something that they're dealing with in addition to their academic demands, which are big enough already. Two hugely important coping tools are to be able to use time management techniques and to learn to study smarter rather than harder. And these are the things that I'm going to talk about today. So in this short video, I'm going to go over some key tips for how to plan your time by looking at the calendar 3 different ways: your semester, your week, and your day. And I'm going to talk about some ways to structure your study time and how to use your study time wisely. So the first thing you want to do is see your semester at a glance. Create a calendar in which you can see everything, you can plot out everything that you're going to do. When you look at that wide open space, you think you have all the time in the world. You really only have 12 short weeks to get it all done, and most of you are studying an average of 5 modules. That's why your assignments stack up around week 6 and week 12. There's only so many weeks around the midterm and at the end of the semester, and so all these assignments clump up on you. So visualize everything that you have to do and you want to do across an entire semester. Populate this calendar with everything that you know about what's going to happen in your life for these 4 months. Your assignment deadlines, all your special events, any doctor's appointments, sporting events, breaks, holidays, whatever else is coming up, driving exam, you name it. And keep this as a living document so you can add things to it as they come up. Once you see this all laid out, you can start to imagine a rhythm to the work that you need to do to be able to succeed in your coursework assignments and your exams. Be smart about your deadlines. Once you've noted all your real deadlines for coursework assignments, then you can see where they stack up and where they spread out. Look at the stacked up deadlines. Are there any that you can complete earlier than the others? Can you start working on some sooner and try to get them close to completion? Try to create and stick to early deadlines for yourself that you can have your paper finished and ready to submit several days earlier than the actual deadline. Then let your paper sit for at least 24 hours. I find that when I write, I can't see the typos or grammatical mistakes or the punctuation errors if I'm stressed or I'm panicked or I'm time pressured. If I take a break from my paper, I can come back to it with fresh eyes, and it's only then with those fresh eyes that I can see that stray comma, that mispunctuated plural possessive, or that misspelled word. So give your paper time to rise like a beautiful loaf of bread, and then proofread it line by line. Remove unnecessary words or phrases. Use active language in your papers. Correct your punctuation. Read for clarity and conciseness. Succinct writing is good writing. If you let your paper rise like a nice loaf of bread and then carefully proofread it, you're more likely to get an outcome that you're satisfied with. Create a weekly schedule. Note everything that happens at the same time every week: your classes, your club meeting, your volunteer activities, your job, your religious activities, anything that you can count on to happen every week. Give yourself a visual understanding of where your time is already accounted for, and then also set aside some time, maybe Friday afternoon, maybe Sunday morning, to plan your next week. Once you've populated this with everything you have to do, going to class, going to tutorials, working your part-time job, going to the gym, visiting your grandma, everything that you plan to do, the weekly, every week things and the once-off things, then and only then can you really see how much time is actually left over to study. Don't be tempted to fill in all that white space with aspirational study time. You'll only disappoint yourself. Instead, put everything else in first, then look at that white space that's left as your realistic study time. And aim for 2 to 3 hours of study time per week per hour of class time, and fill in that white space accordingly. Then stick to it and include it in your daily schedule for that week. Finally, make a daily schedule. At the end of each day, create a to-do list for the next day from your semester and weekly plans. Try to limit this list to what you can actually realistically get done and cross off your list the next day. A common mistake we all make in a daily to-do list is to make it too long with too many things, and then we can't get them all done. So try the stoplight system, where red is urgent, yellow is medium important, and green is of low importance. I once heard a time management person say to focus only on what you code red on your to-do list and forget the rest. I don't know if that's useful or helpful, but it might be a good heuristic to just don't sweat the small stuff and get the big stuff done. You don't have to get a fancy planner to do this. I don't know if you've heard of bullet journaling, but it's a really good and effective way to put these 3 calendars together in one place. It's a system I've been using for more than 2 years now, and it's the best time management tool I've found since I was your age. I've been searching for something ever since then, and this is the one I've finally landed on. There are many online tools that you can use to learn the basics of bullet journaling, like this video on YouTube called How to Start a Bullet Journal for Beginners. Bullet journaling is a system to keep a record of the past, to stay on top of your daily tasks, to manage projects, and to plan for the future. And I highly recommend giving it a try. Now I want to switch gears and talk for a couple of minutes about how to study smart rather than study hard. I'm going to illustrate a study cycle, and I'm going to illustrate what I mean by a focused study session. Then I'm going to give you some tips on how to study actively rather than passively so that you can increase the effectiveness of your time spent studying, so you spend less time on memorization than you spend on learning and understanding. The study cycle starts before you go to class. Before you go to class, you should read over all the materials for that week, maybe listen to podcasts if they've been recommended, look at the reading materials, the assigned readings, some of the recommended readings, watch any recorded lectures. Think about the big ideas that are going to be presented in class and decide whether there's anything that you really don't understand or you have any questions about. Jot down those questions in your notebook and take them to class with you. Next, attend class. Take notes. Ask clarifying questions. If your questions about the materials that you looked at when you previewed for the class aren't answered, ask them. Be an active participant in your modules. Now, the next step is really important. Students often go to class, then walk out, and then don't think about it again until they go to class the next week. But if instead, when you leave class, you sit down and you read your notes, you look for gaps in your knowledge, gaps in what you wrote down compared to what was covered in the lecture, fill in those gaps, see if you have any questions about those notes, you'll go a long way toward consolidating what you've learned in your memory. Write down any questions that you have or any gaps that you find in your notes, and then use them to guide one of your focused study sessions. You can ask yourself, can you answer your own questions? Could you teach this information to someone else if they asked you to? If so, that's great. You're learning the material. If not, you might put this material on your list for a focused study session. And here's what a focused study session looks like. First, you take 1 or 2 minutes to decide what you want to achieve in that study session. Then you take 50 minutes or so, 30 to 50 minutes, to actively engage with the material. Spend some time reading, but do it actively. Make a concept map. Do free writing to summarize what you've learned in your own words. Create practice questions and solve them. So a focused study session looks quite different from a reading session. In a reading session, you might sit and read an article or read a chapter in your textbook. That's different from a focused study session, which is an active consolidation, learning, questioning, understanding the material. Summarize, take time to free write and summarize what you've learned in your own words. Once you've actively engaged with the material for 30 to 50 minutes or so, take a 5 or 10 minute study break and clear your head. Go back after that and recap what you've learned. Assess how confident you feel about what you've learned on that topic and see where you may still have some gaps. Make some notes about what you might focus on in your next focused study session on this topic. After that, choose what to do next. You might continue and stay with that topic, but you could also take a longer break or shift to a different task. After intensely studying one topic, it might be good to shift to something else and give your brain a little break, either by thinking about a different topic, doing some reading, something that's a little bit less intense. So think about scheduling planned focused study sessions for every module across your study hours each week. I really recommend that you do what the top students do. First, if you find yourself worrying about whether you're smart enough to do this, stop it. Self-discipline is so much more effective for academic success than smarts, as measured by IQ, for example. In fact, researchers have found that self-discipline is 2 times more effective than IQ for high academic achievement. High achievers are highly disciplined. They prepare before class, they attend class, and they review after class. They study actively and not passively. They use practice exams when they're available, and they write practice exams for themselves when they aren't available. They question what they've learned, and they integrate across areas. That means they do not rely on rote memorization or reading and rereading PowerPoint presentations. They also work consistently across the year. They don't cram, and they don't procrastinate. That's where your time management skills really come into play to help you cope and stop you from procrastinating. So ask yourself, are you working really hard or are you working really smart? They're not actually the same thing. Some topics like anatomy or chemistry or some others require you to memorize things. But at 3rd level, most of your topics, most of your courses are going to require you to understand, to explain, to integrate, and to evaluate. Rote memorization will not get you far at those levels. You need techniques that help you understand, explain, and evaluate. Once you get this process right, your study time will be more efficient and might even free up some time for you. Some tips are to work together with others collaboratively, not just on group assignments, but to learn. Be an active learner. Write practice questions and problems for yourself and for your friends to solve. Teach one another. Trust me, if you can teach a topic, you have learned a topic. One technique I heard about recently, which a teacher was really excited about learning her students were doing, was that they had created a shared Google Doc, and they made it a group record of their lecture notes that everybody contributed to. They even contributed to it while class was ongoing and worked on it and edited it online during class and also outside class time. So create a study group that you can do that kind of thing with, that you can collaborate together, you can explain things to each other, you can feel comfortable being vulnerable and explaining that you don't understand something, and having someone listen to you while you attempt to understand it, or have them explain it to you in different kinds of ways so that they can help you learn your material. Learning by explaining is the best form of learning, of active learning. And finally, remember that you also need to timetable when you're not going to study. You need to be balanced. The best students are balanced students. So you definitely need to balance study and fun in every single day so you don't burn out. Now, thank you so much for listening to this. I really hope that these tips are useful for you, you find them helpful, and that they're tips that you can use to cope with your academic stressors and reach the successes that you hope to achieve.